after that.
Oops, recording?
Yeah, do you have a problem with that,
No,
Eric?
that's fine. I just didn't
Okay,
know. Can you give me like a 5 minutes heads up?
sure.
Okay. Do the recordings go onto your website or something?
Just the audio, Ruthie, if you're cool with that.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we
that's
can keep it
fine.
off. Yeah.
I should have asked you off camera. Okay, hi, I'm Ruthie, alcoholic. And I'm grateful to be here tonight. And thank you, Roberta, for asking me to share tonight. Thank you, Eric, for doing service, and Roberta for doing service. And it's nice to see some familiar faces and always nice to meet some new people. I have been through these steps as laid out in the big book with a big book step study sponsor. Grace of God, I have completed my amends and I'm trying to live in steps 10, 11, and 12 to the best of my ability on a daily basis. And I love what you said at the beginning of this meeting. I started to write it down, but so I missed the wording. But when you talked about you know, qualifying to be able to speak at this meeting, and you said, having been through the steps and made two amends, and then committed to working 10, 11, and 12 to continue to grow. And then I lost the words and how it was stated, but I thought that was wonderful because that is the key. I was in a AA for a long time before I came to Big Book Step Study. I had checked out a few of these meetings 30 years ago and rejected them and thought it was just way too much work, unnecessary, because I didn't know what I didn't know. And what I have found since I came here 4 or so years ago, I came in during the pandemic when all of a sudden we were on Zoom. And so it was easy to just jump on to one of these meetings. And I could easily commit to one a week. I didn't have to go anywhere and I could just listen. And I liked that I could just listen. Um, like I said, I had been sober a long time, so I sponsored a lot of women. I thought I was working the steps since day one, right? But what I came to find in these rooms that was missing before was a daily program. So I love the wording that you guys use at the beginning of this meeting about committing to 10, 11, and 12 to continue the spiritual growth. It says that we grow in understanding and effectiveness. And so this particular way of going through the steps, of course, is much deeper and very structured than what I knew before. And I love it. I didn't know that I would come to really like this. The discipline and the clear-cut directions. I in the past, going to step meetings, it was the 12 and 12. And there was always vague directions about doing the steps. I went to an AWOL years ago. There were Hazelton guides that were passed around. The directions, so what I came to learn is the directions are in the textbook, the basic text of AA. This is where the directions are. And then these other books are great. 12 and 12 is great commentary on the steps and more information, but the directions are here. So having a daily program, 10, 11, and 12, I really, really learned a lot going through this book with a sponsor, those first several chapters, steps 1, 2, and 3. Reading step 3, especially in the first person, gave me a new way of looking at things about the fact that maybe I was selfish and self-centered because I never thought I was. I was a people pleaser and full of fears, doubts, insecurities as a kid and shy and all that stuff. And then writing out the fourth step in this way was so revealing. Reading it to a sponsor and God in step 5 was incredible because then it pulled it all together after spending a year and a few months writing. It brought it all together at once. And that was it was a spiritual experience. And then moving right into 6 and 7, I was definitely ready to get rid of all that stuff that I had just seen so clearly in black and white. And then the process of making amends, there's some spiritual experiences. That's where the 9-step promises come up. So there's a lot that comes out there. Couple people are unmuted, I think.
Yes.
Um, but getting to the daily steps, 10, 11, and 12, is really where all the growth comes. It's really where, as it says, we grow in understanding and effectiveness. So learning how to do step 10 on a daily basis was really huge. Now, step 11 talks about prayer and meditation. And what I knew about this before I came here was, you know, part of what when I was looking for during my drinking, when I was looking for the answers everywhere else besides here, I was in some yoga classes and a Zen meditation group, and I did a silent retreat weekend at the ashram, and all these self-help books, and read a lot of spiritual things. I did some praying and had a relationship, not a relationship. I had a concept of a higher power, which kind of shifted, from time to time, and grew and changed. But going through the steps this way and having this clear blueprint was really wonderful, because I have a daily program of what to do in the morning, what to do at night, and then suggestions for throughout the day. And this, I find, is really how real time right now, I am continuing to improve my relationship with God as I understand God. What I was missing all my life was that was a relationship, learning how to trust and rely on God. I never even thought of those words. And now that's really what it's all about. But a relationship with a higher power. So what does that mean? When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do before I get out of bed, as soon as I open my eyes, I say a short little prayer. Now, I just happened to go back to my religion a few years ago. I missed a lot of things growing up. I wasn't raised, very religiously, but there were certain practices, and the holidays and family, all that kind of stuff. But I went back a few years ago and found out there was a lot missing, and God was there, and I didn't really know how much people that were more religious in my particular religion had such a relationship with God. So I read some books, and I just picked up a couple quick little things. So I say a Hebrew prayer in the morning that's basically thanking God for another day. Thank you for returning my soul to me so that I could wake up today and have another day. And I'm grateful. So I'm starting my day in gratitude. And then I just ask him to, put me to work. And then I get right into what they talk about here in the morning, thinking about the day. I just ask God to direct my thinking. Now, I was someone that was prone to depression my whole life. And so I ask God to direct my thinking, especially keeping me from that self-pity. And I say dishonest and self-seeking motives as well. But, I just keep it simple. And that's how I start my day. As I go along, one of my favorite things, it talks about morning meditation. Now, pretty much one of the very first things I do when I get up is take my dog out for a walk. He's great because he will not wake me up. He'll wait till I get up. I can sleep late, and he's just, he's into cuddling. It's so good. But he needs to go outside. So I put my tea kettle on so that I'll have hot water for tea when I get back in, and I take him outside. So my morning meditation is about being out in nature and walking. I pay attention to the trees and the sky. That's like my thing. There are so many ways to meditate. And what I love to mention is that when this book was written, this was in the 30s. What they meant by meditation was focused thought on something specific. So, there's a lot of suggestions here. They talk about thinking a lot. You know, on awakening, we think about the day ahead and we ask God to direct our thinking. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. You know, asking God for inspiration and intuitive thought or a decision. And so, you know, one way to meditate is just to think about something specific. Um, Years back, you know, I talked about different things that silent weekend retreat and so forth. I remember visiting a relative in the Midwest, and I went for her on her morning meditation walk, and this was years ago. Her morning meditation was speed walking in silence, right? So there are many ways to meditate. I am really wanting to spend more time, and I'm trying, but I'm wanting to spend more time later in the day sitting. I work from home and I have like meditation music on all throughout the day. And it's just the station is called Yoga Radio. It's just on Pandora. So that's on all day. So I have this meditative music. So at times, when certain songs come on, I will leave my desk and I'll go out and I'll just kind of like, I don't know, I do sort of a moving meditation to some inspiring music. So lots of ways to meditate, and it doesn't have to be sitting cross-legged and clearing your mind completely, although that's very valuable too. My favorite is going through the day and pausing. I'm learning how to live in the pause because I don't want to be reactive. Um, I think for the most part, I was always one who would stuff my feelings, so I wasn't like lashing out or anything anyway. But I was reacting on the inside. I might have a storm going on inside, whereas some other people have it going on outside. Or I might get defensive, or whatever. I don't answer quickly right now. Here's another reason. And my sponsor is so good because she too was someone who was a people pleaser, codependent. So, I really learned a lot from her through this process. And one thing that she does, so she taught me to do, pause before I answer anything. So if someone asks me to do something, I would often say yes and overcommit myself and then regret it. And so I pause. Someone might ask me, "Oh, can you drive me here or there, or can you go to this or do this?" I'll get back to you later. I don't have to say yes right away or no right away. I can pause. Pause. Fear was also another big thing in my life. Anxiety, fear, which now I can identify what that is, but I would just feel it in the pit of my stomach. I'd feel it in my gut. I'd get nervous. I'd get anxious. So now I pause when agitated or doubtful, and agitated for me often means fearful. I learned how my resentments always have a fear underneath. So a lot of times now that I'm doing my daily work, I can see a fear when it comes up before it gets to a resentment. Or I'll recognize a resentment and I'll be able to ask myself, ooh, what's the fear? What is the fear? And I'll be able to identify that right away, which is amazing. So I'm pausing. Pause, pray, and proceed is one of my favorite little sayings. So pausing throughout the day is huge. And I love the directions, and it doesn't have to be exact, but I love, pausing and saying, thy will be done. Ask God for the right thought or decision. I always had trouble making decisions. That was another one because I was always afraid of making the wrong decision. So, so yeah, pausing and praying. We all alcoholics are undisciplined, and that was me, 100%. I never had discipline at anything. Something that I have to remind myself, and from time to time, I'll think about the fact that, wow, I've been sober for 30, whatever it is, years. I think 33. I was disciplined enough to stay sober and go to meetings and practice a program for that length of time. And that to me is really good to remember because my whole life kind of switched around things, switched around jobs, started to learn something like maybe an instrument or a whatever, and then I just give it up and try something else. So this daily discipline I find is so, so valuable. What happens is that it transfers to other areas of our lives. And I'll just speak for myself, but being disciplined in my daily spiritual program helps me to be disciplined with maybe like exercise or eating healthier food or writing out what I spend or reading instead of just watching TV. There's other areas of my life that I start to be able to practice more discipline. So that is, I love, that's wonderful. The other thing that I love is they talk about, there are many helpful books and, be quick to see where religious people are right, make use of what they offer. I love that our program is non-denominational, very important. When I first came in, I thought everybody was Irish Catholic, because I was going to meetings in the Boston area. And I wondered if I belonged. But what's wonderful is that I have now incorporated different books. I have wonderful books of like I have several Emmett Fox books. So there's like some great sort of Christian stuff. And I have many Thich Nhat Hanh books. So there's some wonderful Buddhist stuff. And then when I went back into my religion a few years ago, I ended up with like a collection of these Jewish books that are just different than what I heard growing up. And I really like them because it's just much more God focused. So I have lots of books that I can make use of now. And here's the other thing that I'm learning, and I think this is finally really occurring to me, although I've thought it in different ways over the years. When I was younger and I thought the answer was always somewhere outside of me. And oh, thank you. 5 minutes. I thought that my religion was missing something, and so I was interested in other religions. And I always looked for the answers outside of myself. It was not within me. And I'm coming to learn, first of all, that a lot of answers are within, and I go within and I go out, to nature to get quiet and to listen. That's meditation, to listen for answers. There's something, is it called perpetual philosophy? Perpetual, is that the word? What I mean is that there's so many different paths, but they're all talking about the same thing. So that's what I've come to realize, the different religions that I've looked at, the different yoga, meditation practices, the different self-help books. When this book was written, there were the New Thought movement, and that was Emmett Fox and all of them. And then more recently, I'm a Reiki practitioner, and there's all this like new age stuff. And guess what? They're all talking about the same thing. So this has brought me to that as well. I don't have to look for the answers anywhere else. They're all in here. And they're all in here. And they're all in here in these rooms. Let's see, last couple minutes, what do I want to say? Because there was so much here. Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, basically, so at night, I said about the morning, I said about through the day. At night, I do say a Hebrew prayer when I get into bed, the last thing I say at night, and I fall asleep every night to a yoga nidra. I listen on my phone. I have an app, but I sort of review my day, not when I'm in bed and I'm ready to fall asleep, but later in the day. I kind of review my day. And I know that there's probably more that I could say or might have thought that I should say. And I'll think of it after I stop talking, but pretty much looking forward to hearing others. And thank you again for letting me do service. This is part of my recovery. Oh yeah, part of my recovery because last line, what we have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. So 10, 11, and 12, and 11 particularly, I'm working on my spiritual condition. Thank you.
Ruthie, thank you so, so much. What an